on the side. I'm passionate about healthcare and reforms in the healthcare sector. I also write about stuff that I go through, whether in maybe lifestyle issues or whether it's parenting or relationships. I love traveling. Here is Wanderlust Diaries. For those who know the group, we are passionate about traveling and sharing information about that. I'm very happy this evening to be hosted by Modular, or to host the Modular group, led by architect Edward Mugo, who's very gracious enough to break down some of the things that we might face. So we have, I'm very happy to see we have quite a crowd. I'm gonna just request some household rules. One is that if you can put your microphones and your videos off, that will help us have a very uninterrupted session. And it will also help us to manage the live streaming. We are having this session recorded, so if you don't object to that, so we take your silence as consent. We are going to publish it on various platforms just for the sake of those who are not able to join us today. I'm happy to start this conversation off. One, maybe just giving you a history about myself. I am a mother to 4 children. I am divorced. And in the course of writing about my parenting journey, one of the things that I wrote this week was about whether or not owning a home was a sure way or an indicator of financial freedom. And I think that was on my Facebook profile, Amakove Wala, that sparked a lot of debate on various platforms, and I'm glad to see that has evolved into this webinar, because I got a friend tagging the Modular Group team when I also asked about how I can put up rentals. So I don't want to steal the thunder from architect Mugo, but maybe just to have him introduce himself, and then we can go into some of the questions that you post to us when you ask for registration. And you can use the chat button kindly. We have an overwhelming number of people who registered, so it may be unable to have everyone voice their opinions or their questions. We have a very strong team of moderators at the back, working very hard to collect this information and share it with the two of us as we are going along. So thank you so much. Architect Mugo, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. It's a pleasure to be here. I've heard a lot about you, and it's finally a pleasure to share the same platform with you. My name is Edward Mugo. I'm an architect of close to 30 years in practice. But most especially the reason why we're here, because I'm passionate about building with new technology which is not the norm. I feel that Kenyan building space can be made a bit easier. It can be made a bit easier for a lot of people to own homes, to own rentals, to own shops, things that would increase their passive rentals or income. So for me, I'm here as the CEO of Modular Group. And Modular Group is committed to develop still housing and still student housing. So anything to do with steel panels, steel go downs, anything to do with steel is what we are all about. Nothing bad about stones, but we just feel that we should experience something different. Introduce these new products to Kenyans, see how they take it. And so far, we've got a good reception. I think the average Kenyan homeowner or potential homeowner simply wants to get what the options are. Some people are a bit surprised that there are other options other than brick and mortar, but they are. And I think this is why this chat is important today, to clear up the air on some of the misconceptions about these other products which are not stone art. I don't know, probably I'll take it back to you so that we can hear what conversations, what questions people have. Then we take it from there.
Okay. So thank you so much. I want to give you an example of my own parents. So I was born in Mombasa, raised in Mombasa and then Kitale, and then we finally moved to our rural home, which is Bunyore. And I remember we moved into this very big house that my parents had built, and that was 1994. And Architect Mugo, I think up to date, that house has not been completed. And I think it's not a new phenomena for many of our Kenyan families. We start something with a very, grandiose idea, and halfway through, maybe one or two things crop up, and we are left, with an unfinished structure, which for the most part, we accept and we move on, so to speak. So if I may ask, what are the key considerations? If I wanted to build a home for myself or for my children, what are some of the things that I should look at in the planning phase so that I'm able to put up something that serves my needs at the time that I need it to? Thanks.
Okay, good. I think that's a good place to start. And probably let me start even before you put up your house. What land do you have? If you've not gotten land, then you need to start looking for land. So what are the two, three things you need to look out for land? Look for land that fits your budget. I know that it looks like an obvious question, but sometimes it isn't. You need to get land that fits your budget, and you need to get land that fits your purpose. You could say, buy land in an area which is zoned for something else. You want to put up flats, you go and buy land in an area where the zone, and zone means the place which has been designated by a county council or a city council for a building of a particular kind, does not allow you to put up apartments. What do you do when you've already bought the land? So do your due diligence, make sure that the land you're buying is fit for purpose, it fits your pocket, it fits the zone. It also, critically, is able to take a building. For example, all land, if you're building with normal stone construction, brick and mortar, and you are doing foundation walling, and you encounter black cotton soil, it might cost you almost the value of the land to go down and bring up the stones, probably 8 feet or 10 feet down where you get the solid rock. So it is important to make sure that the area you are buying your land, your piece of land in, if you're doing regular brick and mortar, it's able to reasonably undergo building of what you want. And it is possible that even before you buy the piece of land from your seller, ask them, could I do a trial pit? If they are serious about it, they'll allow you to do a trial pit. Trial pit means you dig a small hole that gives you the depth of where the rock is or where farm maram is. So it doesn't do any harm to ask that. And if you find a seller refusing for you to do a trial pit, then the alarm bells will start to ring. It is also important to buy your land, preferably in the dry weather, because you can imagine, like now it's raining and you see a fantastic piece of land which is dry, then buy it in the wet weather so that you know where the drainage of that land is. There are many people in areas to do with the Kangundo Road who, when the last big rains, they couldn't access their homes. They bought, it was nice and dry, roads were there, but you had to see your house from a helicopter. Admittedly, those rains were high, were very heavy, but it is important to be in the know about the drainage of your land. Now, you bought the land, or you've gotten the land given to you or inherited. How do you then build? Be clear about what you want. The area, the size of home is very, very critical. You can say you want a 3-bedroom, but you can do a 3-bedroom for 90 square meters. You can even do one for 70 square meters. But you can also do a 3-bedroom home for 200 square meters. Those are two 3-bedroom homes, but one is going to cost 2.5 times the price of the other, because cost of building is directly proportional to the size of house. The bigger the house, the more it costs. I'm assuming the standard finishes, we are comparing like for like, the finishes are the same. There are some smaller houses, if they are finished very expensively, would cost as much as a bigger home finished to a lower level of the interior finishes. But typically, the size of house equals pro rata with the cost of that house. So be very clear. If you have 5 million, 10 million, 20 million for a home, be sure that the size of home you want fits that budget. And that's why you find now, like in your parents' home, they did a very big home, but not everything was taken care of. And that's why I tell people, if you're doing a home of a certain amount of money, please get a professional. There are people called quantity surveyors who work with us. And a quantity surveyor will easily tabulate for you and get you the exact cost of your home, so that you know if you need to reduce your area, or you know if you need to reduce the quality of interior fittings that you're going to use. So in short, that is, I think, the first steps. Get land which is fit for purpose, and get a home, design a home that is fit for your pocket, so that you now can finish it in the time you expect to finish it within that time.
Yeah, so that is very good information. For some of us, it is hindsight information, because I think some of us went along into these group things, and you know, everyone was buying in this area. We all rushed there and bought.
Yes.
So if I'm coming to you, I have bought the house, I've bought the land, I've figured out this is the kind of home I want. I've gone to Pinterest and Googled. I remember sending you like 20 images, and I'm like, I need you to create something for that. Now, you've mentioned about professionals, which is very important. In the medical circles where I practice, we have various different cadres, and so we have those who are doctors, we have nurses, we have lab people. Now, in the building industry or the construction industry, are you able to just outline briefly what each professional, what role they play in terms of the planning? Because I think you've mentioned the QS. Sometimes we hear about the civils. So there's a civil engineer, there's a structural engineer, you know. So that's a bit confusing to a lay person. And for some of us, we actually go to a draftsman, and the draftsman, what role do draftsmen play? For others, we actually draw for ourselves. I've lived in a house where, you know, the landlord is like, you know, I drew this house. You know, they're very proud of that. So what's the role of professionals in this?
Well, I think to make it very easy to remember, a professional ideally gives you what you want at the best price point possible for the quality you want. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to use a professional, but using a professional makes you get almost a guaranteed good product. Now, like all professionals, like all human beings in the world, there are good professionals and bad professionals. But I'm talking about a good ethical professional who knows his work. He'll add value to your building. Let me give you a small example. I know for a fact that many people exchange house plans. I got a house plan done. Your friend comes and likes your house, and you give him. First of all, I must add that is plagiarism. That is against the law. That is a no-no. That is copyright. You're stealing the copyright of that guy who's designed that. So anyhow, you take a plan and go and get a fundi. This fundi tells you, I have done this work many times, and I can do for your perfect house. You start building. That house has not been designed to your standards. It has not been designed with Dr. Wala's feel, your family. You've not incorporated enough, absorbed what it is, the nuances your family likes. Does your family like staying in a small family room or in a big living room? Do you like a fireplace in there? It has not taken all that into consideration. You've just been given a plan or bought a plan of somebody. Now, when you build, what normally happens in such a case, you start moving walls because it was not fit for purpose. You start moving this wall here, this wall here, this wall here. Then in the process, you discover you've gotten a living room because you want a big living room. You've done a big living room, which is 7 meters. And the floor above, with your master bedroom up there, needs to sit above the living room. But you forget one small thing. A floor span of 7 meters is very dangerous to put a concrete slab without an engineer. But your fundi didn't tell you he's not an engineer. He tells you, I'm a Jenga nyumba mingi sana na amejenga na imesimama, hakuna yote imeanguka. So because you've expanded your home, you built. I can tell you for free, there are many homes right now with sagging floors, some with dangerously sagging floors. Because what the fundis did, they did what they used to do. And according to them, the more concrete you put on a slab, the stronger it is. So it becomes very heavy from its own weight and you sag it. That goes to introduce some of the consultants you require. You need an architect to design for you a fit for house. You need, and you ask who a draftsman or a technician is an assistant to an architect. The same way a surgeon or a doctor would have a CO as his assistant or a nurse as his assistant. So that's an assistant to the architect. You need a structural engineer to calculate for you what the loading is, give you perspective, give your building the strength, the steel work to stand, that would know where the columns are. And the danger about that, in fact, I need to talk a little bit about this. Engineers are critical because the fact that you get a fundi who has built up even apartments and they haven't fallen does not tell you how much money the owners have spent. There are fundis and contractors who don't use engineers or don't recommend we use the structural people. And you find that they use a lot of steel, concrete that is beyond what they should be using, simply because they didn't want to use a professional. You could find easily on a block of apartments, which have 6 apartments per floor, that slab that we're talking about, the slab is now the floor, can easily cost 2 million shillings. Now, if you don't have an engineer, you can use excess steel to the excess of even 1 extra million, 2 extra million per floor. When you look at the extra money you are spending, even if the building doesn't fall, that extra money, you may as well have paid an engineer to get the exact optimum design for your building. So it is critical both in terms of safety and in terms of optimization of design that you get an engineer. The other trade which is important is a QS. No bank will give you money without using a registered quantity surveyor. He is the one who looks at the plan, looks at the engineering drawings, and quantifies how much money is going to spend. Very rarely will you walk into a bank and tell them, nimechorewa nyumba and I want you to give me 4 million shillings. I'm sure I can finish with 4 million shillings. They'll ask you, how are you sure? Niko na fundi Njoroge Fundi Otieno has given me his materials and labor, and this is it. There's no bank in this country, so far as I know, they are going to accept. They tell you, go look for a quantity surveyor who is registered, go look for an architect who is registered. Because even that plan you bought, it has somebody else's name. You need to put your name and get an architect who's registered to give your plan. Then they'll also ask for who is your engineer. Do you have registered? And why they have to be registered is because if anything happens to that building, they hold the liability. In fact, the fees we charge and the fees professionals charge, there's a component for liability. Kikiumana, who do you take to court? Who do you take to their professional body? It is not that Otieno Kamau will disappear. The immediately at the first crack appears, you will not get him. You will be like Safaricom and their Fuisa, they'll change the numbers. So it is important. It is important that you get people who if you're borrowing this money, money is not cheap. If you're borrowing this money, even using your own money, kindly use it. At the very worst, the team will cost you about 10 to 12% of the total cost of the building. So if you're doing a building of, say, 5 million shillings, the team will cost you about 10% of that or 12% of that. It is good money to protect the 90% of the money. That is not where your saving should be. In fact, that team that you're using could actually have you save money by recommending materials, recommending ways to build, which are cheaper than your usual fundi would. So the other team player who we should have, and especially anything bigger than a residential home, unless it's a very small building, is a services engineer. Those are the people who do our plumbing, the people who do our electrical systems in the house. This is critical. You've gone to people's homes or apartments where there's a strong stench of septic waste. Yeah, waste is not moving.
That was my my previous house, unfortunately, a very beautiful house. And it was a whole design issue because it was an estate. And I remember once someone was repairing their car and then spilled or put the waste fuel into the sewage. It went back, it sipped back like 10 houses down the road and came out through there were two particular bathrooms that had the stench, the master one and the SQ one. And one of my neighbors had, I think, a tussle with her husband. And I think they were estranged. And she called her, I remember she was telling me, she called her relatives and she said, Sasa ninaenda kuwawa, amemwaga petroli in the house, because all that had come back out. But also in terms of the stench, it used to be so bad that you had to keep on pouring hot water to just flush out. And yet it's not that you've not used the toilet, but it's just smelling of that.
Those are critical things. That is plumbing. If plumbing goes bad, it can really mess up your life. Now, if electrical goes bad, it can burn your house. Maybe electrical fires are probably 80% of causes of home fires, home and building fires. 80 to 90%, I guarantee you, is electrical faults given in by poor workmanship, poor wires, which can be sorted out by having an engineer. I hope I've given you the full gambit of the professionals required.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm just wondering, in terms of the cost, so like for doctors, we have a cap we have a regulator who, prescribes the cap to which you can charge a fee for certain service. Do you have the same for this? Because sometimes I will ask 3 different architects, what would be your cost for this and that? And it's just like night and day. So do you have Beya Gioni and Beya Sibui, from the university and those ones from,
Yes, we do actually. We do actually. The law recommends that the architects charge about 6% for a new development, a new house, a new apartment. The law recommends we charge 10% for works to ongoing structures. Any work, renovation work, any work that is in an ongoing structure or interior. If you're doing an office, the recommended rate is about 10%. It recommends about half of that for both the engineer, the structural engineer, as well as the quantity surveyor. There's a different mode of calculation for the structural engineer depending on the civil engineer, depending on the value of civil works. And probably I should explain the difference between a structural engineer and a civil engineer. Both in university have the same kind of training, but you find one has specialized in buildings and building projects, who is now called a structural engineer, and the other one specializes in civil works, bridges, water, irrigation, dams, and stuff like that. So those are called civil works, who now we call that a civil engineer, roads, that kind of thing. So it's called a civil engineer. You need a civil engineer in a building to do your parkings, to do your septic tank systems, that kind of thing. You need a structural engineer to do the structures of your home. But in a lot of small buildings, you find, or a residential home for that matter, you find one of those individuals can actually carry out both. But if you're doing something like an estate, you need both. You need a structural engineer and you need a civil engineer. So anyway, to proceed, so that they charge about 3% as per law. Services engineer charge anywhere, electrical and mechanical charge anywhere between 2 and 3%. Now, Beya Gioni comes in with how you know the individual, how you relate to them, how the size of the company. An architectural company of 20, 30 people will charge you slightly higher rates than an architectural company of 2-3 practitioners. They charge you differently from a man solo who's just going ahead. This is COVID season also. COVID season, I don't know whether there's anyone who's not giving a discount. So in the COVID season, so it's a question of give and take. But whatever you do, make sure that there's a history of the professional you are getting. You've gone and found out what they do. you've gone and find out what they deliver.
Okay.
Yeah, in short, yeah.
So I've just had a chance to look at the chats and the streaming in. A kind reminder to our audience, let's keep our mics on silence and videos off, or if you're able to, without interference. Now, there's a question of someone saying, you've been talking about millions and, very lofty ideas.
Yes.
Someone is asking, please, they want us to discuss bei ya mwananchi, homes that are affordable, homes that are, something that is just simple homes. That's all the person wants. Simple home. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Now, building is very funny. It's one of those, I don't know whether you have that in medicine, whether there's an expensive surgery and a cheap surgery.
We have in the drugs, and also anyway, even with the healthcare professionals, someone who has like 10 years experience will charge very differently from someone who's just fresh out of college.
There you are. There you are.
Mm-hmm.
The other day I was talking to my gym guy, a guy who gives me instruction in the gym, and he's telling me he's finishing his home in Kitale, and he's spending 500,000. It's a 3-bedroom home with proper plaster, everything, proper roof. Now you ask yourself, why do we now build the same 3-bedroom home in Nairobi for 4 million? The answer is this. The answer is in the nature of one, material, the price of labor, because him in Kitale, he's using burnt brick, which I don't know the price. I can't quite remember the price he gave me per brick, but it was ridiculously low, something like 2 or 3 bob per piece. Compare that with Juja stone here in Juja, which lands on your site, for about 60, 70 bob per piece. He pays his workers probably 200-300 shillings per day for a full day's work. Here, you wouldn't even get a KYM in Nairobi for that kind of money. A fundi here, we pay a fundi here in the range of 1,500 shillings per day. The quality of soil there is so good, you can practically start building your house without doing very deep foundation trenches. And even the methodology of what they do, I have been to areas, I've been to Kigali, Rwanda, and what we're doing there with their building technology is very different from what we do here. Here we use British standards, BS, we call them BS. So people have, you do your foundation walling, you dig foundations. If you're in an area where the soil is not so good, you can even go 8 courses of stone down in the ground, build them up and cover them. Then you continue now with your building. And that costs money. Places like Kigali, Rwanda, they were taking boulders, just sinking them in the ground, at the top, having a thin layer of concrete go around, and they start their brickwork going up. So you find a house in Kigali, Rwanda was costing, I kid you not, a quarter of what we were using there to build a home here in Nairobi. And they were big homes, But it's a mode of construction. I find that the way we understood building in especially urban areas, especially with stones, is very, very expensive. A lot of people sink a lot of money. Anyone who's built in this forum will tell you, foundation has taken probably 25 to 30% of the cost of the building. It's actually a big amount of money. And that money, you put it in there, you sink it, and you disappear with it. And that's why now other forms of construction are cheaper. You find now, if you're using a lighter material, if you're using lighter panels, then you don't need those deep foundations. If you're using steel, you don't need those foundations. The saving with all these other new products like EPS panels, steel panels, is not because per se, per square meter, those other products are cheaper than stone, plastered stone. No, it is because of the omissions. What aren't you doing? You are not doing your foundations. When you go up and you are doing your floor slab, you are not using the props and the trappers to support your concrete at the top. In fact, most times, for our steel buildings, we don't use a concrete slab. We use a steel slab, which now has a very small layer of concrete, so that you can put in your tiles. So what that means is that the omissions to a normal way of construction is where actually you make your savings. Coming back to that gentleman who is putting up a 500,000 home in Kitale, it's not that he's doing a bad job, but just that his material, his labor is very, very cheap. The method of construction is different from the way we are doing it here. I don't know if I've answered. Yeah.
Yeah, you've answered. And I think you've brought us to this point. What are the alternatives in construction materials? So I'm a very eccentric thinker, and I think if I was able to live in a bubble or something very different, if City Council allowed me to put up something, I would definitely not use my stone. But that's how I'm wired. I usually think without the box. So what options do I have apart from your concrete? So and even with your concrete, or rather your stone. What are the options available? My preference would be wooden log cabin out in the forest. So talk to us about the options of building materials before we come to the prefab that you're setting up.
Okay. Now there are many. We might not even exhaust them here because it depends on which part of the world you're coming from. The areas, North America, the Tudor regions, where they have a lot of pine forest. They've planted a lot of pine trees. They use a lot of those cypress and pine trees as they're building. They could make them with boards, and that's what they use. Here locally in Kenya, log housing has not yet picked up, simply because good treated timber in Kenya is still fairly expensive. So when you look at the price of good treated timber vis-a-vis what you're going to use with stones, you find you are better off with a local tried and tested brick and mortar. You have new panels that have come in. They're not new. The technology is probably 50 years old, but in Kenya, probably it's coming in 10, 15 years ago. They're called EPS, expanded polystyrene sheets. I don't know if my team
do you have a couple of pictures? Yeah, so we are very visual.
Probably if
as you're talking, we can someone can share the screen.
Someone can share a screen, can share the EPS panel, I think. Let me take it around. Just go down. And they were knocking it down. It didn't fall down. They wanted to do apartments and they knocked it down. It's a mad home. So I really, that to me is a good technology to have. And that goes towards your question, how can you then save money by choose your materials wisely? Choose your materials wisely, what fits your pocket. I know a lot of people who have actually bought that machine and actually built for themselves. Now, it has some obvious restrictions in terms of how many levels you can go. But I'm sure that if you're doing a bungalow home, it is good enough. But if they are doing, again, a storage building, and you do have a frame structure that can handle, and you want to use it as infill, purely infill, then it's possible to use those mud bricks, and they would support. Very similar to the experience I gave you, the house I told you out in Kitale. They actually burn those bricks locally. You can actually burn those bricks in your compound, and that omits actually a lot of the costs in buildings is actually the structure.
Okay. In terms of, so we've spoken a lot about the walls. I've understood the different construction materials that you can use. What about the floors? So there's a question on what material, especially with this precast, what material do you use on the floor? If you're able to, again, mix and match. And then secondly is about what do you think is the best flooring material to use, even with a concrete floor?
Okay. Good question again, thanks. Now, all these technologies, all the floors, at the end of the day, whether it's being supported by columns or supported by stone, the end result is that floor will be level. You probably most likely have a cementitious finish, a plaster finish or a screed finish. Now, your floor type, even if you are suspending it and using steel columns, you still put your steel plates, but on top of the steel plate, you still come with a small slab, 3 inches thick, and slap it on. Now, the floor you use, so the structural floor could be steel, could be concrete, could be the waffle slabs, but the finished floor, I think the question was to the finished floor, whether using tiles, tiles or timber or laminate boards or vinyl strips. Those now depend purely on your pockets, purely on your pocket. If you don't have funds, you could even use cemented screed, which you put a pigment as you're casting the screed, put a color inside, spread it around. It looks very beautiful. I once went to a hotel where that is what the owner had done. I never believed it was actually a cement screed floor. It was artistically done, but perfectly, I mean, very, very beautiful. And at the end of the day, what is a floor for? It's for just supporting us as we walk. So, I mean,
it's true.
I really enjoyed it.
Is it the same as the red ochre that I think
yes, but
the olden houses really had a lot of that?
Yes, there are 2 forms of paint you can use. You can put the paint that you paint after you've done the cement screed. You can use the one I like personally is the powder form, which you mix inside the screed as you lay it. That is more permanent. It looks actually very, very nice. It's done properly by somebody who knows. There are various colors you can use. There's yellow, green, gray, red, all that. It looks fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So the floors are actually according to your pocket, but be careful. If you're in a cold region, be careful about ceramic tiles or granite tiles because they actually lower the temperature of your house. They become extremely cold. So try and use something either timber or timber-like, laminate floors or plastic floors, vinyl floors. There's even a very nice product I like called mkekambao, which is like a carpet, but patterned to look like timber. It's very nice. It's very nice and it's warm. Be careful about laminates. A lot of the laminates we get in Kenya are very, they are sourced by business people who are they're looking for profit. So the quality of that laminate is not the best. So after 2-3 years of use, you find the edges are coming out. Again, if you are cleaning the floor by pouring water on it, obviously it won't have much life. So you need to be careful, understand if it's a Geshagi house, what kind of care is the floor going to be given. Find out before you use your timber floor, whether you have a termite problem in your area. If you're in a red soil area, termites love red soil and they love timber. They'll bring your house down, I kid you not. Termites have been known to bring houses down. But on the other spectrum, if you want to go good quality finish, which is reasonable, I like screed floors. I like bricks, burnt bricks. You know the burnt bricks you use for the floor? Use them for the floors. If you're doing a bungalow, do it for the floor and they come out very well.
Wouldn't it be rough though?
It depends. You can achieve a fine finish on a brick. You can buy the floor, the clay tiles, which are square, and they're actually clay tiles. They are quite inexpensive, and that can make a very, very, very good floor. There are other local materials like mazeras. Mazeras, you know the rough one, but it can actually be hewn into sizes and looks very pretty. In fact, it's become pricey. But a long time ago, mazeras used to be one of the cheapest floors we used to have. Now it's become almost at par with that. Yeah. But there are many finishes you can get. Make sure that they're available locally. And I mean, they can be replaced because floors will crack floors. And I've seen people buying tiles from shops. And after a year, you went to replace it, find that tile is not there. So it's always good when you're buying tiles, buy at least 5% extra. Keep in your stock. You will need it when that tile cracks and you need to replace it.
Yeah, so there are 2 types of building materials that we didn't talk about, and someone has asked a question. One is interlocking blocks, if you can comment on that, and the other one is container houses. In fact, in the beginning, I wanted to construct some rentals with container houses, and when I compare the cost with the steel panel, I had a change of mind. Let me just put it that way. But go ahead and talk about the 2.
Yes, in fact, my company Modular used to manufacture interlocking blocks in concrete. So they're available. We even have the machinery, but that is another, you buy the machine or buy them bought. So it's just quarry dust and cement and a bit of sand, put it into a Makiga type machine, which compresses and is able to give you fairly good blocks. You can buy them. They're a bit pricey. The price would range anywhere from 90 shillings to about 120 shillings per block. But they're fantastic for building, because as opposed to the stones which are which are hewn from the ground, they are very finite. Their surfaces are much smoother. So in terms of plaster, a quarry stone, you'll need to use a lot of plaster, probably 1.5 inches, 2 inches of plaster to get that smooth plaster. These, because they're much finer, you end up using extremely little plaster, probably even 1/4 inch, and you are able. So that's saving, again, you money. So they could be a slightly more expensive than the building block you're buying from Juja, but in terms of finishes, in terms of overall cost, they probably balance out. The speed is also very good, because once they interlock, you use less mortar. Mortar is the binding, the cement sand, which binds one stone with another stone. That element is called mortar. So you use less of that because of the way they are created to interlock with one another. So it's a nice, it's a good, very good building product. Containers, another favorite of mine. Containers are good when you have especially areas with black cotton soil, areas where the soil is not that stable. Why are they good in that environment? Because containers have a large surface area. So once you stabilize, you put hardcore and come and drop your container, you can actually put up 1 or 2 stories on top of it, because then you don't need to remove all the black cotton. So they're very useful for such things. They're also useful when speed is required, where you're putting up a block of shops, and that block of shops, you need it yesterday. Container, you can drop a container, cut it up, and it's finished within 2 weeks, and you're gone. They're also good when you're not sure what you want to do with the land. So you want to put up those shops or those rooms temporary, so that in case you need to move them later and build, then you can come and do it. Containers now, because of COVID, I don't know if it's because of COVID or because shortage of imported materials coming in, have really shot up. I think in Mombasa right now, 40 foot is going for around 450. A container we used to buy at 300. They are now 450, 470. 20 foot anywhere around 200,000. So you need to do your math. Do your math in regard to the negative about containers is that the width is 2.4 meters. For those of us who are imperial, it is 8 feet. So you need to be clever about how you expand that space. The room doesn't feel very squashed. So yes, get a good designer who works with a container and is able to give you a good feel for a room without it being very thin. I don't know whether I've answered. Please, as I talk, I might miss out.
The questions are coming.
Yes. Yeah. Feel free to chat me up and remind me about it. Like,
yes. Yeah, I think we're getting there. So I'm seeing the time is almost up, but maybe talk about touching on containers. Do I still need an architect if I want to use containers? I'm trying to save on costs, here being the typical Kenyan. The second one is, as we wind up, is talking about the roofing. I think people love or are starting to prefer flat roofs. Are you able to talk about the design implication on this in terms of stability or in terms of drainage? And is it possible to do flat roofs with the type of modular houses that you have?
Yeah, okay. I'll answer you both questions with a picture. I don't know if my team can. Let me see if I can put up as we speak. If one of my team members can put up, there's a home I'm putting up with 4 containers. I would love to show you. I think, Dr. you came to visit us. Let me see if we show a picture of that home. If somebody can put it in.
And as you're talking, I think there are quite a number of questions on the cost. So am I saving costs, orange for a 1-bedroom bungalow, if I put up a modular house as compared to a concrete house, or as compared to, any other costs, any other construction materials?
Okay, probably I tackle that one first as we look for this picture. My team looks for this picture. Our product saves you between 20 to 25% of direct costs. Why? Because of the elements of not using foundations, the elements of not using trappers and poles, those poles you saw there. So out the door is 20 to 25%. But more on that, more exciting than that is the time. We can do a project that you can take a year. We can probably put it up, give you keys in 3 months. Inside 3 months, you're inside your. We've done that. If it's out of town because of logistics, we probably do it in 4 to 5 months, depending on how far out of town it is. Out of Nairobi, rather. Out of Nairobi it is. If you're near an urban center, say in Kisumu, it could be probably around the same time because we can get a lot of materials we require from a large city like Kisumu and Mombasa. But still, there's an element of logistical cost which you need to top up. So in a nutshell, that's what the cost is. To do with flat roofs are very, I am a proponent for flat roofs because I feel our weather here is so good. Why are we putting it? And when you put in a roof and the space here is empty, that is so much waste of space and money. I mean, I am fond of having roof gardens and just work on the waterproofing. And we have we have very many waterproofing solutions in Nairobi right now in Kenya that would make sure that your slab doesn't leak. So use that space above your house for a place to sit down. There's nothing as good as sitting down on an elevated space, enjoying your cup of tea or your drink, looking at the sunset. Yeah, I mean, you can't get better than that. You can't get better than that. So I am a proponent for flat roofs, but do them well. Because if you do them badly, my friend, you will cry.
Yeah.
They don't take with the waterproofing. You will cry, I guarantee you. So the extra money you saved from doing the roof, make sure you use part of it to make sure your waterproofing is done by a professional and done well. But I guarantee you, you will not regret that decision. I don't know if my team has gotten that little house. There's a house we are putting up somewhere, which I really wanted us to look. I show you where it started and where we are now. And I thought it would be nice for you to yes.
Yeah, I think the visuals would really help because I went to your site near my neighborhood and
yes.
What I saw, I could not believe it was going to turn into a real house because my neighbor is putting up a 4-bedroom house using the modular precast.
Yes.
And the structure is simply, for lack of a better word, mabatis. So right now, all you're seeing is the steel, and then a lot of the iron sheets. So it would be nice to see the final product because I think to see is to believe, as Kenyans like saying. Yeah. And I would beg my audience to just give us 5 more minutes and then we wind up. And I'm sure there's going to be a part 2 of this session later.
Yes. That is a project we are doing with 4 containers. Those are 40 containers. The space in the middle has been filled up by floors, by elements which will convert to floors. Let me show you the final picture. Let me show you the final picture of that structure, what we intend to do with it. What we intend to do with it is over in a few house. This is that. This is the final view of that entry. As you enter, this is the final view of that entry.
With just the 4 containers.
4 containers. You look at the flat.
And then the steel structure.
Yes, yes. You could ask, where am I? Where are we now? Let me show you where we are now. Let me show you where we are now.
Just the 4 containers. I think you saw it. This guy is doing a good job.
Okay.
Somebody mute somebody. Let
You're
me show
being
you where
complimented, Mugo, so that's nice.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is where we are now. You remember the image I showed you earlier?
Yeah.
Yes, this is where we are now. I think this picture was taken, I think 2 days ago.
Wow. So there are 4 containers inside there. You've just put the cement finish.
Yes. So this one is a combination of container and my modular the panels. So we've added on either side, we've added we've added some space here. If you look at that, that is not part of the container. That is not part of the container. That we've added so that the rooms now don't become very tight. And this goes to ask your question. This is why you need an architect. You probably get this by your local fundi on site. So,
yeah.
yeah.
No, they do have a role.
What's the cost
They do
so
have
far?
a role.
Yes.
Huh?
What's the cost so far to this level?
Okay, so someone is there's a lot of pressure on an average cost. I think I've also asked you this question before, and you told me something about the cost per square feet for modular houses.
Yeah, let me give you actuals. This house will probably cost you about, say, 21 M to put up, according to the size, because it's a 430 square meter home. But we are probably going to do it inside 13 or 14. We are not, we are on track to do it within that much. So you can tell probably a 40% saving here. And we do this with a lot of, let me see whether I can show you even a smaller home. I want to show you a 2-bedroom house, which we did with about 2 million shillings. And this was actually done from containers. Let me see if I could get it for you, container home here. So
Mugo, I can start dreaming about my house. I can see.
This is the picture before. This is the picture before. And this is a picture.
That's a 1-bedroom.
2 bedrooms.
2 bedroom, okay.
Yeah, two bedrooms.
That's 40 feet containers, yeah?
No, 22 20-foot containers, 2 of them.
Okay.
Put in an L format. Container home, where are you? Yeah, okay, let me show you the finished house. This is the finished house, if you can see it there.
No way.
It is. It is.
Wow.
2-bedroom
This is
house
in Kenya.
2.1 million. So without the cost of the containers were on site. So at that time, we had given the cost of the containers probably 200, so about 2.5 all in. Yeah.
Okay.
So this has been done with 1 and 2 containers.
Okay.
And the inside is not too. Oh, sorry. Are we out of time? Sorry, I talk a lot, so you need.
No. Just take us through. I think people will hang on for another 5 minutes. Take us through maybe the interior or something.
Yeah, I want to show you the interior of that one.
Okay.
I want to show you the interior of that one. Yes, let me see. I have a panoramic view of the interior, which is somewhere here. Yeah, I think this is where the kitchen is. This is let me show you another one. I'm sure I would have shown you many at the same time. I'm not too sure my skills in Zoom will get there. That's one of the pictures. There's one I wanted to show you actually, which is more of yes, this is a panoramic. Yeah, now this now shows you, I turned with my phone. So this shows you now to the right here, this is where the kitchen is. That is a door now to one of the bedrooms. This is a door to where the bathroom and one of the other bedroom is. One of the bedrooms is actually a self-contained. It's a master. It has a toilet. And where I was standing was in the living room. And you can see this floor. This floor is what I was talking about, the laminate floor. The vinyl is a plastic floor, but it looks like timber, but it is very soft to the touch and very warm. So this being a very cold area, we put up in a cold area. So you don't wake up and the first thing you touch on the floor is a cold floor. Yeah, so we put up this in 60 days, start to finish.
60 days. Wow.
Yeah, 60.
Okay, I'm looking at the chats, Mugo, and people are of the opinion that you can go on for maybe another 15 minutes. So if you're able to take us through the modular house, I think we are very just. If you have the visuals,
yes,
that would really help.
I actually want to show you a video. I don't know the video which you shared with everyone. Probably what I could do is share a few more. Has anyone seen it here? Has everyone seen it, or I could share it?
You can just share it, the one for the current house.
Yes, the one for the current house.
Yeah, you can share about how
yes,
you are called upon. How the neighbors said you're putting up a chicken coop in Karen.
The neighbors of that house said we are putting up a chicken coop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me see whether it's going to play. I don't know whether the voice is there's meant to be a song playing. Yeah. So this and all of this is done in modular steel panels, and we did it in 3 months, start to finish.
I don't know. Is the video showing? Because on my end it's still gray.
Oh, it's not showing. Sorry. Is it showing now?
No.
No. So let me cancel.
No.
Yeah. Babe, you think you can share there? Let me see. Probably I'm not my rights as a host don't extend to videos.
Okay.
Let me see if my team members can share.
Yeah, but you can talk about so if I'm sending my what do I say? My plans to City Council. Yeah.
Yes.
Do they look and check whether this is a modular house, is a concrete house, EPS, or they're just looking at the drawings?
They look at the drawings. All our homes, if there's a county, they are approved. All of them. We don't do any work until all protocols are observed. We do structural engineering drawings. We do our drawings are architecturally approved. So we don't. There are no shortcuts with that. And when you do a wall, our technology is accepted. It's a bona fide technology for building. So really, whether you do when you draw a wall, whether you put it with Makiga bricks or you do it with concrete blocks or stones or EPS or steel panels, really, it's not. So long as that is a technology is adapted as a building technology, the county doesn't care really. They just know that there's a structural engineer who's looked at your building and has given drawings that are acceptable to them. Yeah. So can you?
Yeah.
I don't know if
the video is showing now. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Zoom technology. So we did this house in about 3 months. You can see now the modular panels.
So this house is purely on modular panel, yeah?
All of it. All of it.
Yeah, these were the mabatis that I saw my neighbor's house looking like.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And someone asked whether the amount of concrete that you used to plaster, is it a lot in terms of the, compared to if you were to put up stones?
Yeah, because even if you put up stones, you still need to put a plaster on the wall. You still need to put a plaster on the wall. So what we do a slightly thicker plaster. So it's not a new plaster. You still have had to put a plaster on the wall. Now we do it on both sides. So yes, it's probably more than a normal home, but still nothing great compared to the savings price that we give you. Okay. These are the interiors. You can see how comfortable they are. Yeah, that's what we do now in the walls. The floors, the structural floor, and your choice of finish will really range on anything you want. The tiles, the laminate flooring. The ceilings are like gypsum. Gypsum is reasonable, and you can play with it, decorative as well as you want. Roofing, deck, versatile, or any tile you want.
Wow, this is great. So I want to really appreciate you, Mugo. I think you made it look. I think you've turned many of us from skeptics to we are considering.
Yes, yes.
And we have, someone is asking how much was that current house?
That was about 40,000 shillings per square meter, which translated to about 6.4 for the mean structure, 6.4 million, 5-bedroom home.
Okay, that's with the finishes, eh?
Yes. We shall give a free brochure. We'll put a brochure on the chat. Please download a brochure of what we do and our contacts on the chat, which I think should have been put up. Has it been put up?
Yeah, we also have their email addresses. So with their permission, we are able to share the same through the emails.
Yeah.
And I think also your Facebook page will have the details.
Yes, yes, certainly.
Okay.
We are passionate about this.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Edward, are you available for a second session? Because I don't feel like we exhausted everything.
Oh, of course, of course. Anytime.
We've put the roof, but am I ready to go in? Is the house ready for me to go in? So I think there are some steps that are still left, and I'd be happy to host you if you're available, maybe in a couple of weeks, and we are able to share. For the viewers, modular group, for those who've been following my page, they are the architects and will also be the contractors of some projects I'm putting up. So I'm happy to share my journey with them. I'll tell you if there's enough noise through the walls. I'll also tell you about the cost where I can. And I think I'm very excited to have them partner with me. So I want to appreciate everyone for this session. We'll have our contacts there. You have my contacts on Facebook, but their WhatsApp, sorry, not WhatsApp, their Facebook group is Modular Group. You'll get a lot of the details there. Their contacts are there. And I hope, Edward, you're ready for the avalanche of requests and contacts that will come in through this session. And you've been very gracious for your time, because I know you charge for, I mean, generally professionals would be charging for such a session. So we appreciate that you're able to get time for us. And thank you also to your amazing team that's been working behind the scenes, ensuring that the session was, we maintained as smooth a transition as possible during the session. It has been recorded, courtesy of your permission, and it will be shared. Yes. So thank you very much, everyone. I want to wish you a lovely evening and a great weekend ahead. And let's keep on talking about easy building. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us. Asante sana.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.